still remember the exact moment my father looked at me in front of an entire room full of people and called me useless. Not as a joke, not with a smile, but with that cold, dismissive tone he had used my entire life. And what hurt the most wasn't the word. It was the fact that everyone laughed. That night was supposed to be a celebration. My father's retirement party, a grand event at a luxury hotel ballroom, filled with his colleagues, old friends, extended family people who had respected him for decades. And me? I was just the son he never respected. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 28 years old, and for as long as I can remember, my father never believed I would become anything in life. Growing up, I was never the son he wanted. I wasn't the athlete he dreamed of. I wasn't the loud, confident, aggressive type like him. I was quiet, thoughtful, curious about things he didn't understand: technology, finance, business ideas that existed online instead of in physical offices. To him, that made me weak, useless. My father, Richard Miller, built his entire life working in a traditional manufacturing company. 35 years, same company, same routine. He believed success came from obedience, hard labor, and following the exact path he had taken. So when I chose a different path, he never accepted it. I still remember the day I told him I didn't want to join his company. I had just graduated. I had plans, real plans, to start working in digital finance, investing, and building something on my own. He looked at me like I had just betrayed him. Computer money? Online business? That's not a real job, Ethan, he said. It is, Dad, I replied calmly. He shook his head in disappointment. You're making a mistake. You'll come back when you fail. Those words stayed with me for years. And when I didn't fail, when I quietly built my own career, he never asked how I did it. He never asked what I earned. He never even asked if I was okay. To him, if I didn't follow his path, I didn't matter. So, when I received the invitation to his retirement party, I almost didn't go. The card was formal, elegant. Join us in celebrating Richard Miller's 35 years of service. No mention of me, no personal note, nothing. Just another reminder that I existed, but didn't belong. I don't know why I still went. Maybe a small part of me still wanted one thing from him. Just one sentence. I'm proud of you, son. But deep down, I already knew I wouldn't get it. The night of the party, I wore a simple black suit. Nothing flashy, nothing attention-grabbing. I didn't come there to impress anyone. I came because he was my father, and despite everything, I still showed up. When I entered the ballroom, it was exactly how you'd expect. Elegant chandeliers, soft music, waiters walking around with drinks. My father stood in the center, surrounded by people praising him, laughing with him, shaking his hand, telling stories about how amazing he was. When he saw me, he didn't smile. He just nodded, like I was a distant acquaintance. Ethan, he said briefly. Dad, I replied. That was it. No hug, no warmth, just acknowledgement. I spent most of the evening standing alone, watching people celebrate him, listening to speeches, stories, applause. Everyone admired him, respected him, and I won't lie, part of me was proud of him too. He worked hard his entire life. He provided for the family. But what no one in that room knew was what it felt like to grow up as his son. Halfway through the night, it was time for the main speech. My father stepped onto the stage. The lights focused on him. The room went quiet. He started speaking about his career, his journey, his sacrifices. Everyone listened with respect. Then, he started talking about family. My wife, he said, smiling toward my mother. My beautiful daughter, who always made me proud. People clapped. I felt my chest tighten because I knew what was coming next. And my son. He paused. The room turned slightly toward me. All eyes, all attention. Waiting. He chuckled lightly into the microphone. Well, not everyone in the family turns out successful. A few people laughed. I froze. He chose his own path. My father continued. Didn't want to follow in my footsteps. More laughter. Some awkward smiles. Then he said it, the sentence I will never forget. I guess every family has one useless child. The room exploded in uncomfortable laughter. Some people looked at me with sympathy. Others avoided eye contact. A few actually laughed, and I stood there, perfectly still, feeling that same familiar pain. But something else too, something new. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't powerless. I wasn't that same young boy who needed his approval. I wasn't the son trying to prove his worth. I was something he didn't know yet. Something he never took the time to understand. I slowly reached into my suit pocket, felt the small envelope I had brought with me, the one I never planned to use. But now, everything had changed, because the man who just humiliated me in front of an entire room had absolutely no idea that the useless son he mocked was quietly sitting on a $17 million trust fund that would change everything in the next 60 seconds. The laughter was still echoing in the room when I slowly took my hand out of my pocket. I didn't rush. I didn't react emotionally. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't hurt. I was ready. I looked around the ballroom, at the people who were still smiling awkwardly, at the ones who avoided my eyes, at the ones who were pretending they didn't hear what my father just said. And then I looked at him, standing proudly on that stage, holding the microphone, smiling like he had just told the best joke of the night. That's when I took a step forward, then another, and another, until I was walking straight toward the stage. At first, no one understood what I was doing. They thought maybe I was going to leave. Maybe I was too embarrassed to stay. Maybe I was going to walk out like I always did in the past, quietly, silently, accepting everything. But I didn't walk out. I walked up. I reached the steps beside the stage and climbed them slowly. Every step felt calm, controlled, intentionnel. The room began to go quiet. The laughter faded. People started whispering, watching, waiting. My father noticed me as I stepped onto the stage beside him. His smile faded slightly. Confusion crossed his face. "Ethan?" he said into the microphone. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer him immediately. I just looked at him for a second. Then I looked at the audience. "Good evening," I said calmly. My voice was steady, clear, stronger than I expected. The room was completely silent now. Every eye was on me. "I wasn't planning to speak tonight," I continued. "I came here to celebrate my father's retirement." I paused. Then I added, "But since I was just introduced, I think I should say something." A few people shifted uncomfortably. My father tried to laugh it off. "No need, son," he said quickly. "It was just a joke." I looked at him. Then I said one sentence that made his smile disappear completely. I knew it wasn't. The room went still again. I turned slightly toward the audience. "For most of my life," I said, "my father believed I would never become anything." I didn't say it with anger. I said it like a fact, like something I had already accepted. He believed that because I chose a different path, I continued. A path he didn't understand. I paused, then I smiled slightly. "But sometimes, the paths people don't understand lead somewhere very different." My father shifted beside me. "Ethan, that's enough," he said under his breath, but I kept going. "I spent years working quietly," I said, "learning, building, failing, trying again. No one in my family asked what I was doing. No one asked how I was surviving. No one asked if I needed help. The room was dead silent. You could hear glasses being set down, chairs creaking, people leaning forward. And that's okay," I said calmly, "because I didn't need approval. I didn't need validation. I just needed time." Then I slowly reached into my pocket again and took out the envelope. This time, everyone saw it. My father frowned. "What is that?" he asked. I held the envelope in my hand for a moment. Then I looked directly at him. "This," I said, "is something I received 3 months ago." I opened it slowly, took out a single document, folded neatly, official, stamped. "A legal trust document," I said clearly. "A trust that was created for me years ago." I paused, then I added the sentence that changed everything. "Worth $17 million. You could feel the air leave the room. A collective breath, shock, confusion, Disbelief. My father stared at me like he didn't understand what I just said. What are you talking about? He asked. I stepped closer to him and held the paper where he could see it. My grandfather, I said calmly. Your father. I watched his eyes widen. He created this trust for me before he passed away. The room erupted in whispers, people turning to each other, murmuring, looking back at me. I didn't know about it either, I continued. Until a few months ago, I looked around the room, then back at my father. So you see, I said quietly, I didn't follow your path. I built my own life, and without knowing it, I was already taken care of in ways you never imagined. My father's face had completely changed now. The confidence, the authority, the control he had just minutes ago was gone. You're lying, he said, his voice tight. I shook my head slowly. No, Dad, I said calmly. I'm not. I held the document up slightly so others could see the official seal, the signature, the legitimacy. I don't say this to embarrass you, I continued. I say this because for the first time in my life, I paused and looked him directly in the eyes. I want you to understand something. The entire room held its breath. I was never useless. Silence. Heavy. Deep. Undeniable. My father couldn't say a word. His mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. I lowered the document slowly. Then I said one final sentence that sealed the moment. You just never took the time to see my value. No one laughed this time. No one moved. No one spoke, because the entire room now knew the truth. The useless son was the most successful person in that entire ballroom. And for the first time in my life, my father was the one standing there, with nothing to say. The silence after my words didn't just hang in the air. It settled into the room like weight. Heavy. Unavoidable. Final. My father stood in front of everyone, still holding the microphone, but he wasn't speaking anymore. For the first time in my life, he didn't have control of the room. He didn't have control of the moment. And most importantly, he didn't have control over me. The audience began to shift uncomfortably. Whispers spread from table to table. People were no longer looking at my father with admiration. Now, they were looking at him with something else. Confusion, judgment, even pity. I stepped back slightly, giving him the space to respond, to say something, to fix it, to recover, because this was his moment, his stage, his night. But he didn't recover. He couldn't. His voice finally came out, but it was weaker than I had ever heard it before. You think money makes you successful? He said, trying to hold on to something. I didn't answer immediately. I let him continue. You think just because you have some trust fund, he went on, his tone defensive now, that you've achieved something. There it was, the last line of defense, the last attempt to minimize me. I nodded slowly, then I spoke calmly. No, Dad, I said. I don't think money makes me successful. I paused. Then I added, but I do think respect matters. The room went still again. I spent my entire life trying to earn yours, I continued. I tried to make you proud. I tried to prove I wasn't a failure. I tried to show you that I was worth something. My voice stayed steady, controlled, but every word carried years of truth. And tonight, I said quietly, you showed me that no matter what I did, I looked at him directly. You were never going to see me. My mother, sitting at one of the front tables, had tears running down her face now. My sister looked down at her hands. Even some of my father's colleagues were avoiding eye contact, because deep down, they knew what they had just witnessed wasn't right. My father tightened his grip on the microphone. You're overreacting, he said, but his voice lacked confidence now. It was a joke. Everyone jokes like that. I gave a small, calm nod. Then why isn't anyone laughing now? I asked. The room stayed silent. No one moved. No one smiled. That was the answer. My father swallowed hard. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. Exposed. I took a slow breath. Then I said the words I had needed to say for years. I didn't come here to fight with you. I didn't come here to embarrass you. I came here hoping, maybe, just once. My voice softened slightly. You would see me as your son. He looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. But the moment passed. His pride stepped in again. "Well," he said stiffly, "you've made quite a scene tonight." I nodded once. "Yes," I replied calmly. "You did." A few people in the audience shifted again, some even nodding slightly. They understood. My father looked around the room, realizing that the attention was no longer admiration. It was pressure, and he didn't like it. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone, trying to regain control. "Let's move on with the evening." But his voice didn't carry the same authority anymore. The energy had changed completely. I stepped away from him, ready to leave the stage, ready to walk away from the moment. But just as I turned, I heard his voice again, quieter this time. Not into the microphone, just to me. "Ethan, wait." I stopped, but I didn't turn around immediately, because in that single moment, I knew something had shifted. For the first time in my life, he wasn't calling me to correct me, or criticize me, or dismiss me. He was calling me because he didn't want me to walk away. Slowly, I turned back. He had lowered the microphone now. His shoulders looked different, less rigid. "Le certain." "What is it?" I asked calmly. He hesitated, struggled, like the words didn't come easily to him. "I didn't know," he finally said. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing I had ever heard from him. I nodded slowly. "You never asked," I replied. That hit him. You could see it in his eyes, because it was true. Years of distance, years of silence, years of assumptions, all because he never took one moment to understand me. The room was still watching, still listening, still witnessing something much deeper than a retirement party. My father looked down at the floor for a second, then back at me. "I thought you were wasting your life," he admitted quietly. I answered him honestly, "And I thought you didn't care about mine." That sentence hung between us. Real, rough, unfiltered. No more pretending. No more jokes. No more masks. Just truth. The kind of truth that either breaks people or changes them. The air between us felt different now. Not lighter, not easier. Just honest. For the first time in my life, there were no filters between me and my father. No fake smiles. No forced respect. No pretending that everything was fine. Just the truth. I stepped closer to him again, not as the little boy who once waited for his approval, but as the man I had become. "You said I was useless," I said calmly, my voice low, but clear enough for the people near the stage to hear. He looked down for a second, then back at me. "I shouldn't have said that," he muttered. It was quiet, almost too quiet, but I heard it, and so did a few others. I didn't smile. I didn't react with relief, because one sentence didn't erase years. "You've been saying it in different ways my whole life," I replied. No anger, just truth. He flinched slightly. That was new. I had never seen my words affect him like that before. "I pushed you because I wanted you to be strong," he said defensively. "I didn't want you to fail." I nodded slowly. "I understand that," I said. Then I took a small step closer. But pushing someone and tearing them down are not the same thing. The people closest to the stage were completely still now. Some of them had turned their chairs slightly to watch us more directly, because they knew this was no longer just a private conversation. This was a lifetime of unspoken words finally being said out loud. "You never asked what I wanted," I continued. "You never asked what I was building. You never even asked if I was happy." My father's jaw tightened. He didn't interrupt this time. He listened. "I built my life quietly," I said. "I worked, I learned, I invested, I grew. I made mistakes. I failed. I tried again. And I did all of that without you." That line hit harder than anything else. I saw it in his face, because for a man who believed he was the foundation of everything, he had just realized, I built something without him. "And tonight," I continued softly, "you stood in front of everyone and reduced me to a joke." My father looked around the room again, at the faces, at the silence, at the weight of what he had done. "I was proud of you for coming," he said quietly. It was an awkward sentence, incomplete, but again, it was something I had never heard before. "Then why didn't you say that?" I asked. He didn't answer, because there was no answer. I let the silence sit for a moment. Then I took a slow breath and said the thing I needed to say most. I didn't come here to prove I was better than you, I said. I came here to stop feeling like I was less than you. That sentence landed deeper than anything else, because it wasn't about money. It wasn't about success. It was about worth. I don't need your approval anymore, I continued calmly. I don't need you to understand my path. I don't even need you to agree with my choices. I paused, then I looked him directly in the eyes. But I do need one thing. He waited. The room waited. Everyone held their breath. Respect, I said. Simple, clear, non-negotiable. My father stood still for a long moment. His pride was fighting with his reality. His habits were fighting with his conscience. Everything he had been for decades was now being challenged in front of everyone. Finally, he exhaled slowly. He started, then stopped, then tried again. I haven't treated you fairly. The room went completely silent. I compared you to myself, he continued, and when you didn't become what I expected, I judged you. He looked down briefly, then back at me. That was wrong. There it was. Not perfect, not emotional, not dramatic, but real. And for my father, that was huge. My mother covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her face. My sister looked at me with a completely different expression than she ever had before. Not superiority, not distance, but something closer to respect. I nodded slowly. I appreciate you saying that, I replied. We stood there in silence for a few seconds. Two men, no longer father and little boy, but equals. Then I said the final thing I needed him to understand. I don't hate you, I said. I never did. I just wanted you to see me. His eyes softened slightly. And for the first time in my entire life, he nodded. I see you now, he said quietly. And somehow, those 4 words meant more than everything else that happened that night. I took a step back, not walking away in anger, not leaving in silence, but stepping back as someone who had finally said everything he needed to say. The room slowly began to breathe again.